The world only lately discovered that World War III memes weren't just jokes, and it should have been preparing for this. So I imagine coming December will be catastrophic for most people when it's lights out and we face food shortages while being butchered by doctors and engineers. But for those of us who live to see the other end of this decade, it's still important to know what to expect. And when the Archangel Surtur comes to cast fire over this world and all of its atrocities, I want him to say that some things in this world were worth saving. And I want one of these things to be this video. So I'm publishing it before the Chinese government uses its European puppets to force me to issue license in order to get internet access. And if you got to my channel by accident and what I said really confused you, then there's one thing I want to ask you. Where were you while we were getting high? Before Surtur and the other archangels are sent here to cast judgment, the world as we know it will get a drastic makeover. Because when humans are no longer in control, the vacuum will be filled by something else. And the focus of this video is on this something, this ancient race who has been at war with humans since the dawn of time. And I'm saying now that this video is fast-paced, so if you feel like it's too much for you, the question remains. Where were you while we were getting high? We were getting high. We were getting high. We were getting high. We already know that the plan is to put humans in megacities divided to 15-minute quarters, and that what it will look like will be a sad version of the city in Cyberpunk 2077 that is probably monitored by AI. And the people bowed and prayed to the neon god they made. There will be a lot less humans in the world after the war, and you heard of dead internet theory, so why not taking it a step further?
Hey, how come everybody here just stays so distant from us? Is it like a health thing or something?
Because it's not real. It's an augmentation. Do this.
But outside of the cities is where it gets interesting. Humans will no longer be just humans, but grouped into categories. Aside from those hunted for refusing to change their genetic code, the three subgroups are transgender, transhuman, transspecies. The first kind was only a step towards the other two types. The attack on biology goes hand in hand with the attack on the chosen people in a war against God. The transhuman subgroup will be the highest in the hierarchy of humans and possibly the only group allowed inside cities, although it is likely that there will be an overlap between this group and the other two groups. A lot of people might ask why God allows this to happen and doesn't interfere, but just look at the choices most of us made in times of moral decay. And ask yourself if we are worthy of His help when most of us were too concerned about our social status to make the unpopular choice. But if you are one of the people who stand by your principles, expect to find yourself outside the safe zones. Hybrids will be one of the threats that you are about to face.
Hybrids would indeed inherit the Earth.
Looking at all the changes in human DNA, who even benefits from it? Because it's definitely not humans. But there is a species that used to be too weak to fight humans in the past, and can finally win a war now. All of these horrors I listed here paved the path for CERN to open their portals ever since 2023. I explained how the wildfires were used to make it impossible to see the portals from the ground. While these portals were open, certain creatures crossed from the other side, so let's talk about who they are. Again, if that's too much for you to stomach, you can watch Minecraft gameplays. You're in the mental asylum now, and who is better to introduce this race than the king of schizophrenia himself, H.P. Lovecraft? First of all, the guy was a total piece of shit. Lovecraft was a man who is scared of everything and hates everyone, and writes about sea monsters that hunt his dreams. The guy actually made a poem about how black people were created because God wanted to make a creature that is less than human. So if he was alive today, quite possibly that he would have a Nazi meme page on Twitter. But I did go through the effort of researching what made him this way and found the following. Born in 1890 in Rhode Island, Lovecraft had nightmares from a young age about demons who lurk in the sea and manipulate humans in their sleep. The official explanation for Lovecraft's visions is the death of his grandmother. Throughout his childhood, he was surrounded by grieving women wearing black. But Lovecraft's story is a lot darker than just a dead relative. His father was committed to a mental institute when Lovecraft was 3. In this 5 years period, the hospital's reports claimed that he was having hallucinations until he died of a sexually transmitted infection. So either the whole family was imagining things, or it was targeted for some reason. Lovecraft was left to be raised by his mom, who was extremely abusive, and after all the trauma he suffered, naturally he became a supporter of Hitler. Lovecraft claimed that sea monsters come to him in his sleep ever since he was a child, around the time that his grandmother died, and that they take him to their underwater cities. The experience, as he described, sounds somewhat similar to that of people who claim to be paralyzed and experimented on by grey aliens. The Lovecraft's family lost its fortune in 1904 when its business failed and the grandfather died. 4 years later, Lovecraft himself became ill with a disease that was never diagnosed. The symptoms he suffered were nervous collapse, breakdown, headaches, insomnia, general weakness, which sound a lot like the result of frequency weapons. The Lovecraftian lore is mostly seen as complete fiction, and the nightmares he claimed to have are considered the result of his trauma. But is it just that? The numerous tragedies that the Lovecraft family went through suggest that it maybe suffered from organized harassment. The creatures Lovecraft talks about resemble tales from different cultures, and the experiences that he described in his dreams are consistent with myths of sea creatures that rise from the water to abuse humans. They are what historians refer to as sea people, while completely distorting who and what they are. I feel like I did what I could to prove the existence of this fish race, and if my video about them isn't enough for you to believe that they exist, I honestly don't think that there's any amount of evidence that me as an individual can present to you to convince you otherwise. And in the current state of things, with society being so demoralized, I wouldn't be surprised if at some point the sea people return to land to rape, murder, and vandalize human communities, and after they are fought off and die in battle, there's a group of protesters financed by the Soros Foundation that demands that the genocide against the sea people stops.
And if you didn't get the metaphor, that's because you're as stupid as a Harvard graduate.
With all humility, I might be the world's leading expert on the subject of the Philistines, since I'm the only researcher to claim that not only that they were not the Arabs that we know today, but that Philistines were not even human. If I cared too much what other people think, I would already be 3 times boosted at least, which is why I don't mind sharing my conclusions regarding this one nation, to show you that the world you live in is a lot more Lovecraftian than any of us would like to believe. When the Romans conquered the land of Israel, they renamed it so that it is no longer affiliated with the Hebrew kingdoms. This was a common tactic to get natives discouraged and demoralized, like how the kingdom Aksum was renamed Ethiopia, Macedonia was changed to North Macedonia, Siam to Thailand, Persia to Iran. But of all the names the Romans could choose, they named the home of the Israelites after this one nation that worships a giant fish. I'm here to tell you that none of it is random. Just like God made man in his image, Dagon made his people in his image. And while every nation that's mentioned in the Bible is traced back to Noah, who is traced to Adam, Philistine is the one exception. This nation's name itself is believed to come from the Hebrew word palash, which translates to invaded. The academia claims that this group of people came from the area of modern-day Greece, but you have to agree that's a weird name for a nation from the Bible days. They were not the first group of people to immigrate or invade other land. Abraham came from Mesopotamia to Canaan. Then his descendants came to Egypt, then back to Canaan, and nobody accused anyone of being an invader. Some nations just went to war and won. So what's special about the Philistines? My answer is that they were called this because they invaded land and not a specific part of the land. The Philistines or sea people are always depicted with these lines over their head, and this is interpreted usually as the top part of their helmets. But the evidence led me to the conclusion that it was part of their heads, like the flipper on top of a fish. High-ranking Roman soldiers and Swiss guards, which are the Vatican army, display a fish flipper on top of their helmet in honor of the Philistines. The Philistines and Sea People attacked Egypt during the Bronze Age. They attacked other nations in different eras, and now they try to weaken humans so they can win in a final battle. Goliath, who is the most famous Philistine in history, is always drawn with a beard. But if you look at drawings of Philistines and Sea People, they never have facial hair. This was very uncommon in ancient times because drawings of Israelites, Babylonians, Egyptians, and so on always show men with beards. What I believe is that this species might be unable to grow facial hair, which is another reason why modern societies are pumped with hormones and medical interventions that change our nature for the worse. So drawings of Goliath with a beard are most likely deceiving us on purpose. In 2020, Sidney Powell, who was Trump's attorney, promised to release the Kraken as a response to Democrats' attempts to end Trump's campaign.
Sydney, at the outset of this broadcast, I said that this is the culmination of what has been over a 4-year effort to overthrow this president.
I'm going to release the Kraken.
Release the Kraken!
The Kraken is a huge squid-like creature that was feared by sailors from Scandinavia in the past. According to the stories, his size made him strong enough to sink entire ships to the bottom of the sea. This description is that of the giant octopus creature Cthulhu from Lovecraft's stories. This monster lurks at the bottom of the ocean and drives men insane by infiltrating their dreams. In the comic book Watchmen, a giant octopus was sent to New York City from another dimension by the story's villain Ozymandias. The telepathic squid sent brainwaves that killed millions of the city's residents. And back to Powell, shortly after releasing this statement about the Kraken, she cut her ties with Trump. She just got her headline and then disappeared. Which raises the question, who made her say that and why? Was she chosen to inform the public that a giant beast was released to demand human sacrifices? And does it have something to do with CERN or artificial intelligence? If someone decided to inform humanity of such an important event, why choose this woman who is not impressive or charismatic in any way? She looks like someone who will bump into your car in a parking lot, then scream at you that it was your fault. Is it because the bloodlines want us to ignore these warnings? Is that why they choose these people to deliver them? This adds to the presence of deep ones in either movies or comic books, where most people refuse to consider what is shown to them as anything other than fiction.
Forgive me, I didn't mean to startle.
It's your eyes.
Another bite. Go ahead.
Man,
Man, you guys really don't quit. I can do this all day.
Yeah, but these guys could do it. Oh, no!
These creatures that attack humans in their dreams can also be connected to a species called jinn or shadow people. Many who suffered sleep paralysis describe seeing one of them grinning smiles when they were unable to move or fall asleep. Until now they were locked in the spirit world, but thanks to CERN's efforts, this is finally changing.
This is the